Hello all, welcome to the Lunar Sea Spire Cartoon Fan Podcast. This is episode 309, and today we'll be talking about Hedgehog Werewolf from Summer Camp Island. I'm GC13.
And I'm David.
An episode wherein one of our main characters gets turned into a werewolf, and it's just a really chill, fun-to-watch experience the whole way through. Just like, yeah, stuff happened, people are happy, except for Lucy didn't seem very happy, but I mean, her time in the sun has yet to come.
A few shoes got eaten in this episode. Yes, in the Summer Camp Island tradition, the narrative structure of this episode only loosely centers around a conflict with a potential resolution, which is that Hedgehog has become a werewolf and Oscar must help snip some of the hair off the Werewolf Queen in order to revert Hedgehog back to Hedgehog form. But it turns out that being a werewolf isn't quite a problem, and I find that really fascinating. At first I thought this episode was sort of going to be something like a weird, uncomfortable metaphor for puberty, but after watching it multiple times, it doesn't really come across that way. But yet it feels like it is a metaphor for something. And so I really struggled to think, what is Summer Camp Island trying to tell me in this episode? Because yes, there's just the fun of being a werewolf and letting your wild side loose, but what is Summer Camp Island trying to say? And so I don't think I landed on it quite being a metaphor, but there is something there about, I guess, learning to accept an unexpected part of yourself, a new part of yourself. It turns out from recently reading the Summer Camp Island wiki that these are tweenagers and not teenagers, as I was just reminded. They're both Hedgehog and Oscar are 11, so these are definitely the years of identity, self-discovery. I don't know if there's a real-world equivalent, though, for like suddenly discovering that you're a werewolf. In this case, it isn't even that Hedgehog discovers that she's part werewolf, but is actually, it's thrust upon her, and she does have the choice to back away from it, though.
Isn't the whole revelation of a secret heritage like an entire subgenre of the young adult lit field?
Well, right. I mean, that's why we all love Harry Potter. The idea that, right around 11, whatever troubles we had in our lives will suddenly be made very small because some big,
we'll
amazing
have much
man
bigger troubles
will come
to worry about.
Yeah, tell us we secretly have magical powers. So, I think this is an interesting twist because Hedgehog is allowed to make a choice. And although there are downsides to being a werewolf, it turns out there really aren't downsides to being a werewolf. You can overcome the shoe eating pretty quickly. Yeah. And then everything else is kind of great.
Okay, so I have a question for how do you view the episode? When Betsy says to go to bed with the loaves of bread on your feet, Hedgehog reacts like it's a joke, but Betsy does not give any indication that it was funny other than the fact that she said a funny thing. So I'm like, let's pretend that I'm trying to put together a how-to guide for Summer Camp Island werewolves, and I have no idea how I'm supposed to categorize this.
Oh, well, I mean, I think absolutely it's a real pro tip to get those loaves on, as soon as the moon is nearing its full status.
You heard it here first, folks. If you're a werewolf in Summer Camp Island, you get those loaves.
I don't think it's ever referenced again. I mean, obviously, Hedgehog actually comes back as a werewolf in future episodes, which I find interesting for reasons I'll discuss in just a second. Yes, but I don't remember seeing her in loaves, but maybe my memory is really bad and people are going to instantly call me out on that. But she does prepare in other ways later, and maybe we'll get to that the next time we cover a Hedgehog Werewolf follow-up sequel. But yeah, I think this episode kind of reminds me of when Finn and Jake get magical powers in Adventure Time. There's like just this whole world of things that can happen when your main character gets, this set of abilities. And in Adventure Time, it was just a joke, a throwaway, and it never comes back. But even from this episode, it's very clear that Hedgehog's identity as a werewolf is going to continue. At least in my mind, it seemed that way because of how it ends with the reveal that one of the werewolves that was, sort of leading Hedgehog through the experience of being a werewolf was actually Betsy, which I found it to be like exciting and weird, and it also just happens really quickly at the end. And then you think, oh, there's got to be more about that, right? Because Betsy even says, keep this a secret. Which, why? why does she not want to talk about her identity?
Because you know how Susie gets around werewolves.
Well, and Susie isn't particularly mad about it in this episode. She's actually kind of just intrigued because she's around taking photos for inspiration for the next moon party.
Yeah, she was mostly just making fun of Hedgehog, but I mean, you gotta realize Susie kind of leads that clique with an iron fist.
Oh, absolutely. But it's interesting to see those witches' relationships explored, and I do like the episode where that happens with Betsy's werewolfness later. But I also like that they just keep this attribute, which, by the way, the things that make Hedgehog interesting have really stacked up by this episode. So you feel a little bad for Oscar. It's really too bad that Oscar's insecurity about how much less he has going on than Hedgehog doesn't come up until way, way, way later.
Yeah. He's got a long time before that becomes a problem. He's a very chill boy.
But yeah, this episode was definitely a turning point for me for thinking, oh, Hedgehog is actually the protagonist, which I guess you could say this show really is like, Hedgehog and Oscar are really deuteragonists. I think that's the proper way to say that. But, you just always say Oscar and Hedgehog.
They're co-protagonists.
Right. Oscar's name always comes first. But now it's starting to feel like Hedgehog's show a little bit because she's just got it all going on. Werewolf's got it going on.
But I do want to talk about Susie, because we were mentioning her. She was so absolutely wonderful when she poofed into Hedgehog's cabin there with Betsy. And do you think I like eating all these grilled cheese sandwiches? Well, you're right, but you're still a mess. That was gorgeous.
I refuse to believe that it was actually grilled cheese and ice cream day. That's definitely just something.
No, obviously.
Right, definitely something
she
Betsy
obviously just made that up to... I mean, she knew she had Lucy going. And I mean, Lucy played right into her hand there.
Yeah, no, Susie's just a jerk. You hear me say it now? I'll say it again.
She is that jerk you love to watch be a jerk, though. Like she said, it's charming.
Oh,
it's charming.
Endearing here. Also, I just like her, capitalist nature when she's running the Moon Festival, and Oscar and Hedgehog are like, isn't moonlight free? But, they pay to get in.
30 minutes of moonlight! Yeah, that was, they got Moon Tunes, was it, that Max was by?
Moon Tunes, Baboon, Lagoon, I like just the pure goofiness of the Moon Festival.
And then combined with the much more down-to-earth nature of the Werewolf Festival.
Man, werewolves are just really cool in this show. I like how they're just like, it somehow the experimental nature of teenagers, but also this weird, woodsy spirituality. I don't know. I mean, they can hear sounds that can't normally be heard. They can see things in the dark that can't normally be seen. It's a weird extra set of senses for Hedgehog to have. And I still don't even know further into the show, like, how much, where does Hedgehog's werewolf side actually influence the rest of her life normally, I think I need to, as we continue to watch the show, see if there's an undercurrent of change that could be led by her allowing herself to have a bit of a wild side. Like, does she appear looser or more experimental in her choices because of that?
Something that the episode doesn't delve into, because they haven't delved into the nature of Summer Camp Island as a hideaway for magical creatures, but Hedgehog deciding to stay a werewolf means she can't go back to the ordinary world, because that would be revealing magic to the outside world.
You are blowing my mind right now. That is totally true. We don't have any rules that say, like, oh, when you leave Summer Camp Island, the magic stays behind, right? So,
not that I'm aware of.
It would seem that this werewolf identity would become a problem monthly for Hedgehog.
And there you have your metaphor.
You want to explain that metaphor?
I'd rather not, to be honest.
Oh, God. I hope it's not a gross metaphor that I'm not understanding, and then if I did, I would be shocked by its adult nature.
Well, let me put it this way. Something that happens for a few days out of each month that happens to chicks around Hedgehog's age.
Oh, I feel very innocent now. This whole time I was approaching this episode as a foolish male in this society, but I am now realizing that there is a thing that is mysterious and arrives around this time in a young girl's life, and now this is recontextualizing everything for me, and that also recontextualizes all the things about what makes a werewolf awesome. And now I'm thinking, oh, this is a deeply feminist message here that just all these waves of things are suddenly hitting me. So wow, thank you, GC, for enlightening me.
Before we let this continue on, and everyone who knows, I will say that because it took us so long to figure this out, maybe this is what they're saying when they say we need more female creators and more creators of different backgrounds. Because, it took us forever to realize this.
And I bet other listeners...
I'm pretty sure Julia Potts, how the heck did it take you guys for... It was right there!
we needed Sophia or someone else on to help correct us. I feel so blind now. This is the problem. This is why we need diversity in the world, diversity of experiences and perspectives. Well, there you go. We have solved that mystery. Check. Wow. And I have now, we've also exhausted all the things I have, except one note. One completely unrelated to the monthly cycle note, which is the mystery of Hedgehog's hat. So I think that this episode shows something critical. It looks just like a sight gag. Hedgehog wears a hoodie about somewhere in the middle of this episode because she's sort of, sulking around a bit or trying to hide under her hoodie. But she keeps the hat on under the hoodie. It is hilarious. It is adorable, but it is also revealing of just how important that hat is to Hedgehog's identity. And it has been 3 seasons, or however you want to count it. That's how it's listed on HBO Max right now. 3 seasons without any explanation as to Hedgehog's hat. Hedgehog's hat's basically on her all the time. And I want to know more about that hat because it sure looks like a wizard's hat. Obviously, Hedgehog is sort of becoming more of a magic user all the time. But it's always stood in stark contrast to, it's like this constant little, if I have one theory about it, it's that her mom is so, strict and so pushing towards the academic and the scientific, that it's like this little way to rebel against that image.
What, that it kind of looks like a dunce cap?
Well, right, there's something maybe unintellectual about it, and there's something a little magical about it, even if it I guess we could argue whether it looks more like a dunce cap or a wizard hat. But now I kind of want to go back and look at some flashbacks and see if Hedgehog doesn't have the hat on at certain points, like if this is something she's just wearing while she's on the island, which would feed into that narrative.
A worthy topic of discussion. I want to go back, though, to the werewolves themselves. You talked about how cool the celebration was, but the werewolves themselves are very chill and accepting. I mean, that door guard was like, hey, who's the elephant? And she's like, oh, he's my +1. The guy's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And then, you look, and there are no +1s there. Oscar is the only one. I'm pretty sure +1s weren't on the invitation. He just let him in anyway, because, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if it's cool with one werewolf, it should be cool for all the werewolves.
Yeah.
I'm confused. Is the Werewolf Queen a dog? It looks like the Werewolf Queen is only ever a dog.
Yeah,
it was a dog in the daytime.
Yeah, I agree. And then she's a dog in the nighttime.
I was about to say, can other animals be werewolves? But in fact, Summer Camp Island is a show composed only of animals for its cast. So I guess that the Werewolf Queen during the day is just a dog. Sure.
I mean, it actually kind of makes sense because, in stuff like D&D and other places where you might find werewolves, there is a distinction between a pureblood werewolf and someone who is afflicted with it as part of a curse.
So these are all cursed?
Yeah, so everyone except for the Werewolf Queen is a cursed werewolf. She's a pureblood werewolf. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. This means nothing. There's really not going to be any conversation around this, but, Oscar does successfully clip off hair from the Werewolf Queen, and then just, is later told that he can just put it back on her. Does it just stick there? Lie there? Does it immediately fall back off?
That worried me, actually, because we never got to see what it looked like. We don't know if Hedgehog made it look good or not.
Right. I mean, the Werewolf Queen said, make it look nice. I mean, but does it magically fuse back on? This is why we just need the few seconds to see something happen with the hair, but it's just for a joke, but now I'm left wondering, and with restless nights.
That whole bit with the hair, though, was actually... Again, this is another one. If I'm writing the definitive guide to Summer Camp Island werewolves, I don't know what to put here. Because Oscar's like, oh, hey, the reason I want your hair is because we want to make it so Hedgehog's not a werewolf anymore. But earlier, when they introduced that concept, it's like, well, I got this from watching some werewolf movies.
Oh, so it could completely be not legit, except it seems that the werewolf movies happen to be correct because the Werewolf Queen appears to recognize that would be a thing that works.
That's what I'm wondering. I don't know. Did she say, okay, well, you can have my hair then? Because she was like, oh, okay, if that's what she wants. Or was it because, like, this won't work, but whatever, let's see where this goes.
Right, well, the Queen could
she just wanted to see them try.
Right, she doesn't ever quite explicitly verbally confirm it. She just says, like, oh, I have the power to reverse, Hedgehog's affliction. She never specifically says that the hair does. Also, what were they going to do with the hair? Did Hedgehog have to eat it, wear it, toss it over her shoulder?
They were going to make a potion of some kind.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what the plan was. So, I will be left forever wondering whether Hedgehog could have stopped being a werewolf with the Werewolf Queen's fur, or if she only indulged them because she kind of figured she had Hedgehog's approval at that point. Answer me this one question, though. Why Hedgehog and not Oscar? I mean, I know she was quicker to go check on the Werewolf Queen after not running her over, but neither of them ran her over. They both had to go off the road to avoid her. So if it was really, as thanks for not running me over, you'd think she would have sought Oscar out too.
Well,
it seems really, really mean to exclude him. I mean, being a werewolf's pretty rad, as Oscar was quick to point out.
Right, I mean, since apparently the Queen views it as a blessing and not a curse, there's not really a great story reason as to why. Metaphorically speaking, I would say that what we previously discussed would suggest that it's a ladies-only club, but I am pretty sure
there are males, it looks like.
Right, there's female and male presenting werewolves, so it's not like Oscar should have to be excluded. And I don't really think it would break the metaphor either. So I don't know.
It would kind of break the metaphor because our perspective character would be male rather than female, but the fact that males do canonically exist, I don't think breaks the metaphor, because we're not paying any attention to them. All the important werewolves in our lives are female.
Right.
So I think that's good enough.
Well, and we still don't know...
if we want to view it that way.
I guess we're assuming, like you said with the D&D thing, that every single other werewolf was bitten at some point, which maybe they all have as unassuming origin stories as Hedgehog, where they just get bitten by the dog. But I don't know. I wonder if for Betsy it was also something that happened accidentally, or if it was a choice. I don't know if we'll ever explore that. But it is interesting how for Hedgehog, it starts off as not a choice, at least.
Yeah, you think she would have thanked her and said, hey, you want to be a werewolf or something?
It is nice to be asked first, but I guess being a werewolf is just so cool that the Queen just assumes. It's like, would you really ask somebody if they want $1,000? You'd be like,
I mean,
you just assume here's $1,000. Like, I'm not going to ask you. I could just hand it to you.
I don't know the banking laws in their country. There might be problems with just dropping $1,000 on them.
Right, you might get taxed somehow.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Well, I guess, there's other things.
That's okay. I'll route it through a few dummy accounts.
Right, we'll open a shell corporation. I mean, if you just hand somebody $1,000 on the street, you're putting them at risk of, now they have $1,000 in cash. Where are they going to put it? They could be in danger of being assaulted or robbed or something. So that really, that tracks.
Lessons that we learn from Knights of the Old Republic, too. That's another if you know, you know.
I am, that is one very specific example of that. There may be no other examples of that, so sure, that's the Old Republic too.
Hey, Nar Shaddaa, baby.
Oh, so really, there's really only one other thing I have to say about the episode, which is that the moon is always at whatever party he wants to be at. He was like, I'll see you at the festival, and he's like, I'm the moon. I'm already there.
I do like how the moon is omnipresent, so we can be carrying on individual conversations with tons of different people. And I loved that when Hedgehog leapt up to confront Susie at the end there, you have the moon with a very stern, grr, I disapprove of you, Susie, face right behind her, very powerful.
Well, okay, the moon may be omnipresent, but, he also moves around in the sky. I can't remember the episode, but the moon, goes to check in on Oscar's parents at one point.
Yeah.
Right? And, I don't know how that works in the Summer Camp Island world, but sometimes I feel like there's the moon that exists everywhere else, and then there's the moon that talks in Summer Camp Island, but that's not entirely, that can't be true, because we've seen the whole, celestial organization during the wedding episode for the space aliens, and the moon is the one moon.
It's a wild scene. I think there's some heavy-duty magic stuff going on this island. I think someone should probably look into it, maybe make a TV show. Probably animated.
Oh, they made, with the Magic Treehouse children's book series, a secondary book series that just explained the science for each book or the history for each book. And so what I need for Summer Camp Island episodes is a separate guide that explains it to me. Much like, there was the Guide to the Crystal Gems, and there was the, book 3 or whatever for Gravity Falls. But I really need an episode-by-episode breakdown a la Magic Treehouse, because we're never going to get it in show. And we're obviously being driven mad by trying to speculate how this island works. And, magic,
yeah.
I guess we never know.
It's a little wild. Anyway, guys, that's us on Hedgehog Werewolf. Make sure you join us next week. Until then, I'm GC13.
And I'm David. Thank you for leaving us 95 reviews so far on Apple Podcasts. 5 more and we'll reach an arbitrarily 3-digit number. Thanks.
Later, everybody. Our opening and closing music is by Mark Soto. For more cartoon-related content, please visit lunarseaspire.com.